I want to share the pattern instructions for the bra that I made recently, which is an underwire balconette sort of type with foamed cups. For the first time I have a bra that actually fits me in a design that I really like, and it also functions as a sort of t-shirt bra for me because it is very smooth. Now, as I mentioned in this video, there are obviously many different pattern options out there, but for me personally I think that it just makes more sense to make your own pattern from the start, because me, more often than not, I spend way too much time adjusting those to my measurements, and the bra is a very demanding project because it needs to fulfill all of these functions while being comfortable. So to find this pattern I had to make many mock-ups to understand all the different nuances that come with bra construction. On that note, I am not a bra making expert. I think that is a niche in its own right. I have gathered my knowledge from all over the internet, from pattern construction books, and my experiences are obviously linked to my size. But this is a very great basis that is built on your measurements and that you can adjust to your own preferences. I want to try and explain everything that I learned, and I hope this will help you to make a bra that actually fits and that makes you happy. So let's start with the construction of the band, and for that you'd need an underwire that fits you really well. Essentially it needs to trace the root of your tissue. I talked about it in the video about the underwire bras. There are longer ones and shorter ones. This one is perfect for the type of balconette bra that I'm making. And the first thing you'd need to do is to find the center of the underwire. This is very important because when you construct the band, the underwire needs to lie in the right position, otherwise it's just not gonna fit well. The ends of the underwire need to point upwards. Also, one end is usually slightly longer than the other one, on an underwire of that type, that is. And to find the center, the way I've seen it done, you have to mark a line that is 8 centimeters long in total, and then the middle. And then you position your underwire and check that this length is the same as this length here. So right now this is 1.3 centimeters, this is 1.5, so I need to position it slightly different. Okay, so this is the middle of my underwire. Both ends are pointing upwards. The length here is 1.3 and the length here is 1.3. As for the measurements for the bra band, you need only two: the circumference or the width underneath your tissue, and it needs to be measured very snugly while breathing out. For me it's 68.5 centimeters, and also the width between the tissue. Ideally you would measure it on a bra that already fits, but I personally didn't do that. It's basically where the root starts here and starts here. For me it's 2.6 centimeters. These are the two measurements you need for now for the bra band, and I'm starting with a simple line, and I'm placing my underwire underneath the line, leaving some space here, and mark the center. This will be 0.0. Now while it's here, I'm going to trace it on both sides and mark the end of the underwire. Now, as I already mentioned, an underwire never lies flat like that. When it's being worn, it is in a stressed position. So we need to sort of stretch it roughly 1 centimeter to the side. And I actually really hate to do that by myself. Okay, so I'm stretching it and marking it again in the stressed position. Function. So this will be the center of the bra, and here that's where the closure will be. So I'm going to draw a line in a right angle from this line to meet the end of the underwire. And then I'm going to take half of the measurement of the gore, of the width between the tissue, and find it from this point on. So for me it's 1.3 centimeters. And I'm going to draw a line in a right angle once again from this point upwards. So this will be my gore eventually. So the underwire obviously needs some seam allowance, some space in the tunnel. So it's usually 5 millimeters. So I'm going to elongate it following the line of the underwire for about 5 millimeters. Here. Make sure to not follow the straight line here, but really the line of the underwire. And also here, 5 millimeters. Let's call this point here at the end, where the center of the gore is 1. Now let's find the end of the bra, where the closure will be. And for that you need your measurement of the chest circumference underneath the tissue, minus the width of your closure. For me it's 4.5 centimeters, minus 10%. And 10%, that is a very rough estimate. It honestly depends on the materials you use, on the elastics you use. That's what is commonly used, as far as I can tell, as far as I have gathered, but this is what I used last time. That is what worked for me. So minus 10%, and it's gonna be half of that. Okay, for me it's 28.6, and I'm going to measure 28.6 from point 1. This will be point 2 for me. The next thing would be to find the side seam. For that I measure 0 to 1. For me it's 7.4 centimeters, and you're going to add once again roughly 1.5 centimeters to that. So for me it's 8.9 centimeters, and this is going to be 3. I guess I'm also going to name this point here 4, where the underwire ends, and here where the other side of the underwire ends, I'm going to name it 5. Now I'm going to connect 4 with this line of the gore in a right angle to this line. This is going to be 6. Okay, so further to find the side seam, we need to go in a right angle to the line of the underwire here from point 5. This really depends on the relation on the ratio between the fullness of the tissue and the width of the chest. So this can be 2 centimeters or 4 centimeters. For me it's 3 centimeters. These are things that you kind of have to find out on your own, because obviously when your tissue is larger but your chest is smaller, your side seam will be closer to the underwire. For me it's a bit more further away. So for me it's 3 centimeters, but it can also vary. And this will be 0.7 for me, and I'm going to connect it with 0.3. So this is my side seam. Now to find the back, sort of, we need to go down here at 0.2 in a right angle to this line, and you're going to need to go also roughly 2 centimeters to 4 centimeters. It really depends on the curvature of your back. For me, I found out that 3 centimeters work best, and this is going to be 0.8. Now I'm going to connect 3 and 8 and measure the distance between 3 and 2. For me it's 12.3 centimeters, and I'm going to mark 12.3 centimeters, so this length here, I'm going to mark it on this line, 3 to 8. This will be 0.9 for me. Now I'm going to measure the width of my closure, the way it's going to be connected to the band. For me it's 2.9. And from 9 in a right angle to 3/9, I'm gonna go upwards. This will be 10 for me. So this is where the closure will be. Now I'm going to connect 5 and 10, like that. And I'm going to measure, I'm going to find the middle between 5 and 10. For me it's 7.8 centimeters. And here here at the middle I'm going to go down in a straight angle once again, in a right angle once again. I'm gonna go down 5 millimeters. And using this line here, I'm going to make a slightly curvy line from 10 to 5 so that it's not just a straight one, but a bit curvy, a bit prettier. Keep in mind though that at 0.5, so essentially where the underwire ends, it needs to go at least for about 5 millimeters in a straight line, just so that it will be easier to sew. And also here where the closure is, it needs to go in a straight line for about 5 millimeters. Okay, so this is the top of the band. Okay, so I now marked it in color. I hope that you can see anything at all. So basically it's important that this line is sort of smooth. Here it should be a right angle for about 5 millimeters. Here it should be a right angle. Here actually you can decide to make the line like that, for example, or like that. There are many different options, but I made it straight for my design. So the strap is usually positioned sort of here. I found the position for my strap while wearing my mock-up, so I don't have a formula for that. Now let's work on the bottom part. Obviously the underwire lies here underneath this line in an underwire tunnel. So we're going to need some seam allowance here, and the seam allowance here depends on the width of your elastic. Usually it's about 1.5, 1.2 centimeters. So for me it's 1 centimeter. So I'm going here at 0.0, I'm going down 1 centimeter. And here at the gore you usually go up a bit. It could be 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters. It is kind of a design preference. I went up 1 centimeter. So this will be my 0.11, I guess. Okay, and now I'm gonna go in a right angle from 11 for a bit, for about 7 millimeters. And then I'm going to try and draw a smooth line to here. And I'm trying to sort of constantly leave these 1 centimeter seam allowance here where the underwire is. Kind of like that. These lines are obviously not perfect, but it's so, I don't know why, but it makes me so nervous to do that on camera. Okay, kind of like that. And we also need to go to the 0.3 to connect it to this line to 0.3. Kind of like that. Can mark it in color already. Here 3 to 9, I'm also going to measure it. So it's 12.3, and I'm going to divide it by 3. So it's 4.1. And here at this point I'm also going to go up 5 millimeters maybe, just to also make this line a bit smoother, a bit prettier, so there are no rough edges here where where point 3 is. And I'm going to connect it with 0.9, but here it also needs to go in a right angle for a bit, for 5 millimeters, for about 5 millimeters. Kind of like that. So this is the finished band. It is usually divided here at the side seam. So this will be the main part that holds the underwires, and this band part is usually made out of some elastic mesh fabric. I made this part out of silk, and for that I actually marked my grain line on bias so that it would be a bit more stretchy, and I think I also made it slightly longer than it has to be, so that essentially the elastics would hold the band and would sort of make it snap to the chest. But this is the finished band pattern, and you also need to measure from 0.5 to 0.0, so essentially this length, and also from 0.4 to 0.0, so this length. And you need these two measurements for the cup construction, and it needs to be very, very precise. To measure it, I'm putting my measuring tape like that, and for me it's 12.2 millimeters here, and on this side it's 11 centimeters for me. Okay, now let's construct the cups. So for the cups you need a few more measurements. The first is the width of your tissue, so from here to here, from the end of the root, from one end to the root to the other end of the root, where it's most prominent, so where the fullness is concentrated. So this will be the first measurement you need. For me it's 19.8. Then the other measurement you need is the height of the center of the breast, so the height here where the fullness is most prominent. Essentially this measurement will mold your tissue upwards, so you need to sort of decide how high you can go, but honestly it's best measured in a bra that fits well. For me it's 8 centimeters. And then you also need to measure the width of the center, so from inwards, from where the root starts, to the center of the fullness. So this is what I try to explain with how tissue can point outwards or inwards. You need to measure sort of the center of the tissue. For me it's 9.5 centimeters. And now we're going to draw a simple line once again, and one that goes in right angle upwards and downwards, a bit longer upwards. I'm gonna call this one 0.0 again. Actually no, you don't need to go downwards at all. I don't know why I said that. Okay, so from 0 to up here we measure the height of the center. For me it's 8 centimeters. 8 centimeters upwards. This will be 0.1. And then we're going to divide this by 2.5. This will be 0.2. So once again you take the measurement from 0 to 1, which is the height of the center of the tissue, and you divide it by 2.5. For me this is 3.2, and then from 0 upwards I go 3.2 centimeters. Now in a right angle from 2 I'm gonna go to left and right, that. And then I need the measurement of the center width Jesus, which for me is 9.5 centimeters minus 0.3 centimeters, which for me is 9.2. And I find 9.2 here on my ruler, and I try to connect it with this line at 2. So from 1. This will be 0.3. And then for the other side, it's the overall circumference of the tissue, which for me is 19.8, minus the center width, which for me is 9.5, minus 0.3. For me it's 10 centimeters. And once again I'm going to find my 10 centimeters from 1 on this line here. This will be 0.4. And we're also going to connect 4 and 0 and 3 and 0. So this is going to be the lower part of the cup eventually. And we took out 3 millimeters on each side because we're going to give them back to each piece here in the center. So from 2 I'm measuring 3 millimeters on each side. And with these 3 millimeters I'm going up 1 centimeter upwards and 1 centimeter downwards, like that, in a right angle to this line. 1 centimeter up, 1 centimeter down. And then we connect these in a smooth line to 1 and to 0. Kind of hard to find these lines sometimes. Ugh. Okay, I think the lines look sort of okay now. I don't know why, but it's so hard to do this on camera. Okay, so to make these cup pieces round, I measure 0 to 4, which for me is 9.3 centimeters. So the middle would be 4.7, which is here. In a right angle at the center of this line, I'm going downwards 7 millimeters here. Then I do the same here, and here I measure 8 millimeters in a right angle from the center of 0 to 3. 1 to 4 I also measure in half, and here I go upwards 8 millimeters. I measure 1/3 from 1 downwards, and here I go once again in a straight line upwards 1 centimeter. And now I have to connect these dots so that all the lines here at the top are smooth and round and sort of go into each other. Okay, so kind of like that. The line at 0 and at 1 should go very smoothly into each other. I'm going to mark them in color as well. Okay, so these are the parts in color. The green one goes here. This also belongs to the green part. And it goes here on the left side of the cup. And the orange one here, this one also belongs to the orange cup piece, and it will go here. Now we're going to need to measure the length here and the length here. For me this one is 8.6 centimeters. And this one is 9.4. So to construct the top part of the cup, we need to subtract, is that what you call it? The measurement here, which for me is 12.2, minus 9.4, which for me is 2.8. And the length here, which for me is 11, minus 8.6. So that's going to be 2.4. Also, you can already, here on the band, you can already mark where the piece will be later. So 9.4, I'm going to measure 9.4 from 0. And I'm also going to measure 8.6 from the other side, from 0. These will be very helpful marks later when you're sewing to put the cup into the band in the right position. So now let's construct the top part of the cup. Okay, I think my camera sort of forgot to film, but what I did is I went up 4 centimeters. This is my 0.5, and from 0.5 I made a line in a right angle to this line. Now from 0.5 to here, we take the measurement of the center width of the tissue, which for me is 9.5 centimeters minus 0.1, so minus 1 millimeter. This will be 0.6. And for this side, the width of the tissue, which for me is 19.8 minus the center of the tissue, which for me is 9.5 minus 1 millimeter, so 0.1. So for me it's 10.2 centimeters. This will be 0.7. Now from 0.5 we're gonna go downwards 1 centimeter. This will define the curvature of the top of the cup. This can be 0.8, and we're going to connect 0.8 to 6 and to 7. Now from 6 in a straight angle to the line 6.8, from 6 we're going to take the measurement 2.4, so the measurement that is sort of missing here. This will be 0.9. And also in a straight angle from 8 to 7, the measurement that is missing here, so this one. For me it's 2.8. This will be 0.10. And now we're going to connect 9 and 10. And we are also going to smooth this line here, the 6, 8, 7 line, so that it's not as pointy. Actually, I'm also going to mark it in color, I guess, so you can see better. Okay, so this is basically it. This is the finished pattern. This is the band, part 1 and 2. And these are the cup pieces, 1, 2, and 3. The grain line here should go according to the gore line here, so it goes downwards. Here, as I said, I cut these pieces on bias. So the next very important step that you shouldn't skip is to basically double check that all these lines flow into each other smoothly, and for that I'm going to transfer all the cup pieces onto transparent paper. Then I'm cutting them out. For the lower cup pieces I also mark this line here, this one, and the top and the bottom and the side, just so that I won't get confused later. And I mark this line here to be later able to find my grain line, but also to align these pieces better together, because then I have an additional mark where they connect. On the top part of the cup I also mark the top, the bottom and the sides, and now I can sort of put them together to double check the line. See, for example, here these connect quite well together, but there's this small, very small dent here that kind of goes like that. I hope you can see that. So we're going to need to adjust it slightly here. Obviously these are not my actual pattern pieces. For those I would take much more time usually, but just so that once you're doing it at home you kind of know what to check. Then I also connect them at the bottom. And here at the bottom you can very clearly see that there is this sort of dent like that. So I need to go here. So I need to maybe elongate it maybe 1 millimeter down here. And also here as well on this side. Then we're also going to double check how the lower cup pieces connect to the top cup. Oh, I actually forgot to mark this here. You need to mark the center of the top cup. You need to mark this line here as well. Okay, so honestly you kind of have to double check everything, all the measurements, just because foam, especially foam, is kind of unforgiving. So you need for all of these pieces to connect very smoothly. And for the foam cup pieces, they don't need seam allowance here and here, where the foam is essentially connected to each other, but here at the sides, where it will be connected to the band, and also here at the bottom, you need seam allowance, but not here and here and not here. And the grain line for the foam, it would go in a straight angle, in a right angle to this line here. So this would be the grain line, and here also this would be the grain line. For the top of the cup, the grain line is going to go that way. So in a right angle to the end of the cup basically, because it shouldn't stretch here in that direction. For my silk covering pieces, for the bottom part I made it into one part, so I connected the cup pieces like that, and I cut my silk covering pieces for the lining but also for the covering as well on bias, so in a 45-degree angle to this line, so that these 6 millimeters that are basically missing here would kind of stretch out over the cup. And also I added seam allowance all around. For the top of the cup, for the silk covering, I cut this cup piece on fold, so this was the fold line, and it also had seam allowance on these edges. So yes, I think this is pretty much it. This is the finished pattern, the 2 band pieces and the 3 cup pieces. Did I forget something? Well, obviously the position of the side seam really depends. Honestly, everything kind of depends. You just have to make a mock-up and see how it works. As for the side seam, you can adjust it here at the length here, 5 to 7. You have to try it out. The length of the band really depends. Also regarding comfort, for example, the line here 2 to 8, so how far back it goes. This depends on how curvy your back is, for example. A bra is a garment that needs lots of extra attention when constructing the pattern, because luckily all of our bodies look slightly different. So yeah, you just have to try it out. Like I said, I personally made many mock-ups to find out what works for me, so don't feel discouraged if it doesn't work out right away. But I think this is a great starting point, and I hope this helps you out. Honestly, it might even fit you right away, hopefully. Hopefully you don't have to go through as many errors as I did. So that's it. Have a lovely weekend. Bye!